Hey everybody, YT Steve Place here, and I'm coming at you with the new series that I might start making soon. It is my own Star Wars What If series. So this entire show will be about what ifs, like, what if this happened instead of this? Today's episode is what if Anakin Skywalker became Emperor Vader. Our story begins on the planet Mustafar, when Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi are fighting. Everything in the timeline happens the same way until the high ground scene. Instead of Anakin Skywalker jumping up and getting cut in half, he successfully jumps over him, stabs Obi-Wan in the chest, and kills him. As Palpatine arrives and gets off his ship, Anakin Skywalker, who is now Darth Vader, is already there waiting for him. But that's until Palpatine doesn't sense Darth Vader's betrayal, and Darth Vader ends up killing Palpatine as well. And so, therefore, Anakin Skywalker would never have needed this suit that you see right here. He probably would have worn a similar one, except without all the buttons on there, and he would have like a big, huge cape and everything. Also, now that Obi-Wan Kenobi is dead, you might be wondering where Luke Skywalker is gonna go. So this part of the fanfic I've sort of created, and I thought it was kind of cool. Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru would of course still adopt Luke Skywalker as like their son, but Ahsoka Tano would fill in Kenobi's place in the original timeline, and she would be the one to train Luke to become a Jedi. This also means that the events of A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back are different now, because in The Empire Strikes Back, Darth Vader says, "No, I am your father." But in this timeline, he would have already known it, since Ahsoka was trained by Anakin Skywalker, and she knows that this is his son. So she would have revealed to Luke Skywalker that his father is Darth Vader, Emperor Vader. Luke Skywalker would also go on to become more powerful than he was in the original timeline. Not just with the Force, also in lightsaber combat. Since Ahsoka Tano was a very skilled Jedi during the Clone Wars using 2 lightsabers. Very skilled Jedi. Luke Skywalker would be more powerful in this timeline. So now I feel like that Ahsoka and Luke Skywalker would actually be more secretive than they were in the original timeline, so I don't think they'd be going to the cantina and meeting Han Solo or Chewbacca or anybody. So in this timeline, let's just say that they do go to the Death Star for some reason, and then Luke Skywalker fights his father, Emperor Vader. But this would catch Emperor Vader off guard, since he hasn't seen Ahsoka since the Clone Wars, and he'd be emotional seeing his old apprentice again. So Emperor Vader would try and turn Luke to the dark side to be his apprentice, but Luke would resist, and Ahsoka would tell him not to. Eventually, Luke and Ahsoka would win the fight because their skill is too fast for Emperor Vader, and eventually Emperor Vader would go ahead and surrender. Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano would take him into their ship, and they would have him restrained with handcuffs on and his lightsaber taken away from him. Emperor Vader would then let Ahsoka Tano and Luke Skywalker know that there is another child, who is none other than Leia Organa. Luke and Leia would meet, and Luke would introduce Leia to her father, Anakin Skywalker. But Leia would be furious about seeing the man in front of her who has killed over thousands of rebel soldiers that she has loved and hung out with and have celebrated with. And Leia would try to kill him, but then Luke would end up stopping Leia's her. Adopted parents would come out and hear what she was doing, and they'd be very furious as well to see Emperor Vader standing in their area. So they would initiate every rebel soldier to come in there immediately and execute him. Luke and Ahsoka would activate their lightsabers and jump into action immediately, deflecting every blaster bolt. And all 3 of them would retreat and blast off into hyperspace and go to another planet. They would all 3 land on the planet Coruscant, and they would arrive at the old Jedi Temple, which has been there abandoned for many decades. Anakin would start having trauma after Order 66 and him killing younglings, Padawans, Masters, Knights, Temple Guards, and everything. But Ahsoka and Luke would help calm him down with the Force. "Remember the way you trained me, Master," Ahsoka would say. Anakin would start slowly turning back to the light. Time would eventually pass, and Anakin Skywalker wouldn't be fully back on the light side, but he would be more of like a gray Jedi. He would use a little bit of the darkness, but use more of the light side than he would the dark side. It would eventually bring the Jedi Council back from extinction, but they would change the rules. They would allow you to have attachments and allow you to have dark emotions. In this timeline, one of the students there would be Mara Jade, which Luke Skywalker would end up falling in love with. That would eventually lead to years later, Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade would have a son named Ben Skywalker. Around this part in the timeline, I would say we're about 10 years before The Force Awakens takes place. Eventually, Anakin Skywalker would grow very old and he would pass away around like his 80s. So we're probably like after The Rise of Skywalker at this point. Luke and Ahsoka and many other Jedi Masters would go on to continue training Jedi after Anakin Skywalker's passing. They would grow old and they would eventually die, and the Jedi Council would continue for centuries, just like the original Jedi Council did decades ago. And that is where our story ends. What if Anakin Skywalker became Emperor Vader? The end. Peace.